happy 2025. Hope everyone had a good New Year's. Let me know in the comments if you got anything cool for Christmas. Me personally, I finally got my very own Turbo Man doll.
Here's to you, Dad.
If you don't know what that is, go watch Jingle All the Way. Enjoy that hour and a half. It's absolutely fantastic. My favorite Christmas film. But today I want to kick off the year talking about Caravan SandWitch, which is an indie game I picked up a few months back. Saw immediately that the developer was going to be adding a photo mode in, so I held off, I didn't play it, and I have finally gotten around to it with the photo mode, having so much fun, and yeah, let's talk about it. So this game really reminds me of Sable, which I made a video about this past year. I loved Sable. It's one of my all-time favorite games, and it has kind of a similar aesthetic, a similar sort of vibe where you are out kind of in the wilds, traveling. If I had to give the aesthetic a name in this game, I would say neo-retro softcore solar punk. I know, a mouthful. I'm sure the developers would love to have that on the back of their box. But regardless, it's a really cool vibe. There's a lot of old tech. There's a sense of people being there before you. There's kind of this looming feeling of company ownership and capitalism gone awry, which is, I think, really topical right now. It's super interesting stuff. I love it. Also, the central mystery of the game, which has you kind of tracking down your sister's distress beacon that reappeared after many years, and there's this figure that's sort of like following you on your journey. It's really interesting. It has me totally hooked. I really love the music in this game too. You know, I always have to talk a little bit about music. Sometimes it reminds me a bit of Death Stranding, just in that you're traveling and they'll have like music playing over certain parts of the game. I always love when games do that. It sort of makes you feel like you're in a music video. Death Stranding did that. Sable did that, of course. This game does it too pretty early on. And just overall, the music is this beat-heavy, lo-fi aesthetic. It's really cool. So onto the photo mode. It's super, super simplistic, but I'm totally okay with that because it fits the vibe of the game. And it feels like you are this character and just sort of like, you know, you've got a disposable camera with you and you're snapping pics during your journey. It's super easy. It's very quick. There's not a lot of options. And I like that. You know, when I traveled for the first time out of the country 2 years ago, I thought about bringing my really high-end digital camera that I use for all my gigs and whatnot. But instead, I got this little 35mm film camera that only had like 3 settings, which was portrait, landscape, and like super close-up shot. And it really made me enjoy the trip a lot more because it didn't have me so in the nitty-gritty of all my camera settings, and it was just like snap what you see. And that's what I felt like in this game. You know, it's a very simple photo mode. There is zoom in, zoom out. There is, you know, go up and down. There's change the speed of the camera. But there is no, you know, there's no posing, there's no time of day, there's no lighting, there's no depth of field, none of it. But again, it works. And I think with the art direction and with kind of everything being in focus, it looks beautiful. Another thing I want to touch on is the fidelity in this game is just out of this world. And I didn't even notice that like when looking at trailers and whatnot. But when you're actually playing it on a 4K TV, on your PlayStation or whatever you're playing it on, it is sharp. And I know it's a simplistic art direction, but that doesn't make any difference. Like, you can look at older games with simplistic art directions, and the fidelity isn't hitting quite like this one. And I really think that comes down to it using Unreal Engine 5. And this is a great example of Unreal Engine 5 it can be used for more than just making hyper-realistic games. This game is utilizing that engine in a way to make everything just absolutely smooth, crispy. I just love it. Taking photos and looking back at them is really something. I love the camera range. You can really zoom out. You know, I love when games do this. There's no reason to lock the camera. And yeah, it's nice to be able to zoom out and kind of get a whole view of the island. And you get some really cool shots where, like, I use the van as sort of a focal point within the island, And you can really show off the landscape while also kind of keeping in touch with your character. And the whole photo mode is really great for minimalistic shots. A lot of the landscape at times can be really like, I guess, matte, you would call it. The line work between the clouds and the sky is very flat looking. Same with like the sand and when you're out there. And even in more complex structures like these broken down buildings or these old trucks or whatnot, there's a very like a 2D flatness going on, and I mean that as a compliment because it gives everything this vector art effect where every shot feels like it's like geometrically placed in such a satisfying way. And I loved lining up shots that gave it this sense of very minimal and like open wide spaces. Like there's a lot of shots of me in the desert or using the skyline, but yeah, I just love it. And again, even in these complex structures, there is a cleanliness to the shots. It's really legible, I suppose I should say. Everything you look at, you can tell what it is. You can tell what is that machinery, where is my character. And this helps too with the character having a very like distinct look with this, turquoise shirt with the bright red hair. I love that because any shot you take with the character in it, they really pop. So it helps as a photographer to be able to basically compose these shots while also not losing your subject within the environment. Every location feels very derelict and lived in, and I had this same compliment with Sable. Things feel like there was an old world that lived here. And what's nice about this game compared to Sable, I suppose, is they talk a lot about it. There is this company that had people there, and some people who currently live here wish this company would come back so that they could have better paying jobs instead of trying to live off the land, which is very deprived of resources. There is a underlying critique of the trajectory of our current world, and I really enjoy that, and I'm really fascinated with that kind of discussion. So overall, I highly recommend this game. I think it is extremely beautiful, and if you are someone who likes photo modes, I think you will have so much fun. Here's to the new year. If you've watched over the last few years, I really appreciate it. Have a good new year.